Pop-Tarts, this is a Housework Ramble. I have placed you on my dresser, which is a total bomb site. I have 3 loads of washing folded up behind me on the bed that need to be put away. I have got to do some rearranging really badly, really big time. There's just stuff everywhere, guys, seriously. The Housework Ramble videos are great because they allow me to essentially make videos when I otherwise would not have time to, because I have to do this housework. I've got to get it out of the way. I really appreciate being able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, to be completely honest. I love the idea that I can get my stuff done and actually also chat one out at the same time, and you guys seem to be okay with it. You seem to enjoy it. A lot of you take it as a chance to get on with your housework as well, which is amazing. So there's definitely a subject that I really want to get into today that's been on my mind since I woke up. Oh my goddess. Glow stick bracelets. You know, New Year just happened. This one is all about tarot community and something specific that has been ongoing as a discussion in the tarot community. And it's, you know, it's a conversation that I don't really have any stake in. I don't have a dog in this fight necessarily. I've just been interested in what other people are saying and how they are developing their opinions and you know, what kinds of different opinions there are. But I have not necessarily felt moved to share mine whatsoever, really. I'm just kind of finding it to be a subject of interest for me. God, it's really hard for me to get comfortable having the camera here. It's quite weird. It's just so different to being in my kitchen. I am in 3 or 4 different Facebook tarot groups and I am reasonably active there. I do a lot more reading than I do actually commenting, but I find a lot of the conversations interesting. I like to read what's going on there, and I get a lot of my information about new decks from the tarot groups on Facebook, so definitely they're a useful place for me to be. And I've noticed on and off in the last few months there have been a few discussions on various different Facebook groups about a specific tarot certification program which is being offered by one of the biggest tarot names in the industry. I'm not going to name names. I'm sure a lot of you can put 2 and 2 together, but the name isn't really important. What's more important is the discussion that's going on around it, which has been a very hot topic in the tarot forums or tarot Facebook groups. Forums, you can tell I'm of a certain age. Very hot topic in the tarot Facebook groups of late. And essentially what the conversation is centered around is the price of the certification, which is certainly undeniably at the more premium end of the price range. So, you know, it's a very high price compared to other certification programs that you find online. And a lot of people have been concerned about the pricing, and a conversation has kind of sprung up in a few different groups about whether or not tarot certification is even necessary, what the pricing should be, how much is too much for a tarot certification, and whether or not we are leading ourselves and each other down the garden path by even entertaining the idea that we need to have a certification in tarot, and the idea that these kinds of programs lead to us erecting some sort of a standard for tarot learning. And a lot of people are not okay with that. A lot of people do not want to have a standard for tarot learning, and I can completely appreciate why. From my perspective, these discussions about this particular pricey certification and whether or not it's necessary have sort of strayed into a really sort of intense territory, and I was quite surprised by some of the replies that I've read over the last few months whenever this conversation has come up about the certification and about the idea of tarot certification or tarot courses or tarot teaching in general. I think that initially the conversation was centered around whether or not it was too much money, the worry that people would pay that money on the basis of how popular this person is and how much they are seen to be one of the, you know, the leading professional tarot readers online. At first, I feel like the conversation was very much centered around how much money the certification was, whether or not it was worth that money, and asking for opinions from people who have taken the certification. And the people that had taken the certification, you know, always came in and said, yeah, it is worth the money. I don't regret paying that money for it. So I found that interesting to hear from people who had taken the certification. And there was a lot of concern, like I said, about the idea of tarot being standardized, tarot learning being standardized, and the idea that somebody can almost confirm that somebody has a set standard that is somehow better in some way than somebody who might be self-taught or whatever. And I can understand why that conversation is taking place. But I noticed, and I have noticed each time this conversation has come up in a tarot group, that there's also a lot of people who are extremely against any form of paid tarot learning, and they really have a very strong opinion about it. And there's so many people as well that are being extremely harsh about the creator of this particular certification and really just dragging their name through the mud. And there's a few things that I want to get off my chest about this. First of all, when you slate a tarot certification that's been created by a long-term, well-known tarot professional, whether you agree with that tarot professional's pricing or not, whether you actually value that tarot professional's work or not, when you slate their certification and say that it's idiotic to spend money on that certification, you are also slating the people who consciously chose to spend their money in that way. There are lots of people who have invested in that certification or in other certifications to learn tarot to a particular standard, to learn from a specific person in the community whom they favour or respect. And so when you put down a certification in such strong terms, you are also putting down the people who have chosen to invest their money there. And the reality is this: something that means absolutely fuck all to you, something that is worth absolutely $0 from you, is worth a lot to somebody else who's coming from a different perspective, who has a different idea of what is important for them in their tarot study. And essentially, we're all different kinds of people. So one person's, expensive tarot certification that's really valuable, that helped them to become a more confident reader, is somebody else's complete fucking overly expensive waste of money. So you don't really have the right to come along and say, this certification is bullshit, and anybody that took this certification is an idiot or a fraud. And these are the kinds of really strong terms that I'm seeing things being discussed in. And I just find it really shocking and weird, because in the one breath you've got people saying that they don't want tarot learning to be standardised, they do not want any kind of elite tarot standard to be created, but in the same breath they are being elitists themselves by saying that anybody who pays for tarot certifications or tarot courses shouldn't necessarily even be using tarot in the first place, that it's not a tool that is even appropriate for them, because they should be able to teach themselves. And that's the kind of opinion that I'm seeing coming up a lot when these discussions are being raised, is people coming in and saying tarot should be self-taught, you shouldn't need to pay anyone to teach you tarot, there should be no such thing as tarot mentoring, no such thing as tarot certification. And that is a form of elitism in itself, when you're saying that you don't want these tarot certifications, that you feel like they create some kind of an elitist standard that shuts out people that don't have money, or that says that only this certification is the right one. Then you in yourself are being elitist by saying that the only people who are really legitimate tarot readers are those who do not pay for courses or certifications. And look, at the end of the day, there's many different paths up the mountain with tarot. We learn differently. Some people want one-on-one mentoring. Some people want to be more autodidactical and go their own way and learn, off their own back. Some people want a combination of a bunch of different things. Some people have one specific person in the community who turned them on to tarot and who really inspires them, and they want to purchase that particular individual certification, and that's what makes sense for them. Just because it doesn't make sense for you doesn't mean that it shouldn't make sense for anyone else. And I think that position that people are taking is so hardline and so elitist, actually, that it's actually quite funny to me in a way that these people are saying that it's elitist and it's exclusionary to have these expensive certifications that people are doing, when really there's an elitism that comes with saying that the certifications are bogus and that nobody should actually need to do them if they are, if their tarot skill is anything worth its salt. So like I said, I have no dog in this particular fight. I have not gotten involved in any of these discussions. I do think a lot of the replies have been interesting. A lot of people have said that, they find some certifications just too expensive and they can't imagine how it would ever be worth that investment. But if other people are happy with it and other people want to pay it, that's fine. And I think those kinds of comments are fine. It's okay to say that something wouldn't be worthwhile to you monetarily, but you're okay with it being worthwhile to someone else. It's more the hardline comments that I've seen that have bothered me, and I didn't choose to reply to any of them or get involved until today, when I really felt like the comment that I'd seen was just so extreme and so wrong-headed in my view that I just felt like I had to say something in response. So this person said in one of the tarot groups today, in a conversation about this individual that's got this big certification, they said, people who pay for tarot knowledge irritate me. Tarot can be learned by anyone who applies themselves and is patient and accepts that learning tarot is a lifelong journey and not a course. This person teaches nothing you can't learn yourself. Wake up and stop underestimating your own abilities to learn. If you must pay to learn tarot, then it's really not your calling. And I mean, look, like I said, there's many different paths up the mountain. I didn't pay anyone to learn tarot. I learned myself. But that was what felt right for me personally. It didn't come into my mind that I necessarily wanted to have somebody teach me. I wanted to just learn myself, so that's what I did. But there's lots of things I've paid for courses on. There's lots of things I've paid for mentoring with. I respect the power of being able to do a course with a set curriculum, you know, with an outline to it, with a beginning, a middle and an end, to make things less confusing and less complicated, and really just give you a clear sense of where you're going and where you're going to end up. You know, that's a completely valid way to learn something, and it doesn't mean that you're not also learning off your own back, or you're not also taking your own initiative. But there are plenty of people who just feel like they want to learn something from a mentor. They want to learn in a more kind of involved way with somebody who knows the ropes. Seeing people saying things like that, seeing people say that, for instance, tarot is not your calling if you feel like you need to pay for a course. Tarot is not your calling if you need to pay somebody to mentor you in it. That kind of thing is so elitist, and I think we need to recognise how elitist that is. I really do. I don't think anybody who is selling a certification in the pro-tarot world is saying that their certification is the only way that you can learn tarot. But I am seeing quite a lot of people saying that self-taught is the only way to learn tarot, and that it's not okay to learn in any other way. And so to me, that's the more elitist position. So I replied to this person and I said, everybody learns differently. Everyone invests their money in ways which make sense to them. There is no one right way to learn tarot. There are lots of different ways up the mountain. And this person immediately replied with almost a shocking degree of speed and said, it's no surprise that you would pop up. Your videos have aided the tarot commercialism pollution. Okay, fucking hell. Just say what you feel, babe, you know, just say what you feel. Don't speak in half sentences. Really come through with what's, you know, what you really want to say. Get it out, get it off your chest. It's not really my kind of thing, you know, ad hominem attacks and that kind of stuff. It's not necessary. So I replied back to this person and I said, what on earth? And then I said, my 10-part tarot course is free and it always has been. Anyone can access it on YouTube and lots of people have used it to learn tarot. And then I said, I popped up because you're taking it upon yourself to say who has tarot as their calling and who doesn't. Some people want to learn from teachers. Some people want certification. Some people are totally self-taught. All of those people are valid as tarot students. There are far too many different kinds of people learning tarot for only one type of student to be valid. And at that point, the person that said those things to me deleted their comment, so the entire thread was deleted. Our little thread that we were having a discussion on was deleted. But not before I took some screenshots, because I must admit I was really quite blown away at being accused of having my videos being part of what has aided the tarot commercialism pollution. So I sat with that for a little while. Tarot commercialism pollution. What does that mean? What is this person trying to say? And why am I being accused of being involved in creating that kind of thing? And it was kind of an interesting, heady exploration for me to go on, thinking about, you know, what exactly tarot commercialism is. What is this pollution that this person is speaking of? And it was kind of an interesting thing to consider, because a lot of the tarot Facebook groups that I'm on, they are very much about, you know, new decks coming out, what decks people are buying, what decks are on people's wish lists and that kind of thing. So really, you could argue in one way that the tarot groups themselves are extremely invested in the commercial side of tarot, in the sense that they are talking about making investments in decks. They're talking about spending their money on decks and expanding their collections and stuff. So you definitely could say that that the Facebook groups also feed into what this person described as tarot commercialism pollution. But I suppose it depends what this person means ultimately, doesn't it? It depends what this person means by that phrase. And I wonder if anybody watching this has an idea of what they feel that tarot commercialism pollution means. Because I have some ideas of what this person may have been getting at, but at the same time, I definitely feel somewhat lost when I think of that phrase as well at the same time. How might my videos be feeding into a tarot commercialism pollution? Is it because I film unboxings and first impressions, and so I'm therefore showing the ways in which I spend my money on tarot decks? Is it considered to be a way of promoting people spending their money on tarot decks? I don't know. Is it considered to be obnoxious to do unboxings and first impressions? I certainly have made a conscious effort to ensure that my entire channel doesn't get clogged up with unboxing and first impressions, that I'm not too overly concerned with talking about new things in my collection. Although, of course, at the same time, as many of you will already know, I actually don't unbox things that much because I find it difficult to work with lots of different new decks at a time. I get distracted. I find that decks don't get my attention if I open too many at once. So I suppose there isn't really that much danger of my channel going in that direction. But certainly I am a professional reader, and certainly I do talk about tarot. So I mean, is that what it's considered to be? Tarot commercialism pollution? I don't know. There's always been professional tarot readers. Professional tarot is a profession that's as old as God's dog. So if that's what I need to do to be part of the issue of tarot commercialism pollution, then I suppose I am doing it, and I show no signs of stopping because it is something that I feel is a part of my calling. I don't mind how somebody gained their tarot knowledge. I don't mind if they went one-on-one with a mentor. I don't mind if they're self-taught, if they used a free course, or if they used literally the most expensive certification in the online market. I don't mind if they learn from somebody down the road, or if they learn from their mum or whatever. What I do mind is when people are really hardline and elitist about the way that people should learn. You know, I met a person a few years ago who was really insistent that you shouldn't learn from books at all. She saw book learning as fake learning, and book learned tarot readers as like fake readers. She said you should get everything from spirit, and she was really hardline about that. And I found that to be just as ugly of a position as the people who are snobby and elitist against people who don't favour book learning. I just feel like there are so many different paths up the mountain with tarot learning, and it's so sad to me that it's become this really hard line argument, this back and forth where people are saying literally the way that you learned tarot means that you are not a real reader. It is not your calling. And to me, if I had taken that expensive certification and I'd come onto a tarot group hoping to just, hobnob with other tarot readers and just enjoy the feeling of community, and I saw somebody in a tarot group saying people who took that certification, tarot isn't their calling, and they are just contributing to the commercialization of tarot, and they're not real readers, they're fake readers, and they were taught in a fake way that doesn't constitute real learning, I would feel pretty fucking bummed out by that. And I would really feel so pushed out and so alienated and so confused, because to me there are all of these different ways to learn the tool, and it really depends what's best for you, what your personality type is, how good you are at learning on your own. Some people are not that good at learning without instruction for all kinds of different fucking reasons. You don't know what somebody's story is, and you can't propose to know whether or not a monetary investment in a certification was the right thing for them or the wrong thing for them. They have to decide that for themselves. To all intents and purposes, when it comes to this specific certification that people are debating about a lot at the moment, I've never seen a single person who took it that didn't say that it was worthwhile. But that's besides the point. I think more the point that I'm trying to make is that there are different ways of learning, and as long as everybody feels comfortable in what they're learning and they're enjoying the journey, who are you as somebody else to come in and say, you know what, you are a fake reader, it is not your calling, honey, put the cards down. It's just like, what? What? No, that's not the way. That's not the attitude at all, in my view. Do we really want to be super rigid and super prescriptive about the way that we claim that tarot can be learned? Do we really want to complain about certifications being elitist, whilst at the same time spouting elitist views ourselves about how people that take certification are not real readers and they are not legitimate tarot people? To me, in my view, money is one of the most difficult things that people deal with in terms of their attitudes towards it, the way that they respond to it, etc. It is definitely, without doubt, one of the things that people experience the most neuroses around. It's one of those things where people are neck deep in complexes associated with this theme of money. I think people have a lot of issues stemming from their upbringing. People have a lot of insecurity about stuff to do with finances and money. And I feel like rather than actually looking inward and thinking about what you personally need to do to improve your relationship with money and feel differently about it, there is instead a lot of projecting outwards, and there is a lot of resentment, there is a lot of bitterness, and there are a lot of people making judgments about how other people spend their money, and it really just makes them so angry. I think that some people are angry when there are unboxing and first impressions videos on YouTube, and maybe the person watching them can't afford to buy new decks. They cannot prioritize that kind of thing right now. They are struggling at the moment. They have more important things to worry about. And instead of really just owning the way that they feel about other people being able to buy things like tarot decks or trinkets for their craft or whatever, instead of owning that and taking it in and sitting with it and saying, okay, I'm feeling envious, I'm feeling cynical, I'm feeling apathetic, I'm judging this person because of what I'm going through, I think that instead a lot of people are just lashing out. A lot of people are accusing somebody who has some excess income, who wants to buy tarot decks, of being frivolous or overly commercializing tarot as a practice or whatever. And I just feel like it's down to us as adults to take responsibility for how other people's expenditure makes us feel. It's shadow work, isn't it, really? It's shadow work, and it's basically recognizing those shadowy thoughts and feelings that you are having, and instead of giving them power and giving them authority and saying, yeah, these shadowy thoughts I'm having are the truth and let me go and attack people with them, you have to look at them, you have to see them for what they are. You have to say, oh, I know where that's coming from, and that's coming from something that I'm struggling with, and whether I feel like it's true right now or not, I recognize it's coming from a place that is to do with the underbelly of my psyche. It's to do with things that I'm going through, that I'm struggling with. So let me think more about what I'm going to do about really harmonizing my own relationship with money, or whatever it is, rather than going out there and projecting and attacking. Holy shit, I've had this nail varnish forever and it's still good. What is in this stuff? It's amazing. Ooh. It's hard for me to believe that a person could be so angry about the way that somebody else chooses to utilise the tool of tarot, how they choose to spend their money when it comes to their tarot practice, whether or not they want to do a course or mentoring. It just strikes me as so strange that somebody else could resent that so much and could make such a strong judgment of somebody else's approach to their tarot learning that they would literally say, that person isn't a real tarot reader, it's not their calling. If they have to pay to learn anything, then it's not their calling. I just find that really, that's got to come from a deeper place. That is not about the other person paying for a tarot certification. That's about the person making the judgment, and they need to really go within and think, shit, why am I so pissed off that people learn tarot differently and that people feel like they want to spend their money in ways that are different to the way that I want to spend mine? Like, what is it about that that really fucking bugs me? Sometimes it definitely is about the fact that a person is envious of another person making money as a tarot professional or making money doing what they love. I'm not saying that it's always that, because it's not always that, but sometimes I think that the shadow comes from watching somebody make their money fulfilling their passion. It almost doesn't seem fair to some people, I don't think. Ooh. Oh, that's made me feel better. Bit of Burberry. Anyway, it's for those individuals to really sort of look at why they are expressing themselves in this fashion, and why they are convincing themselves that certain people are not made for tarot, or not, not legitimate because they want to pay for a learning resource. I mean, it's really down to those people to figure out why they feel that way and why they have such a hard line opinion. And like I said, it's not always jealousy, but and it's not always coming from a place of not having the money to do the certification themselves. It's a whole bunch of different things, really, and I think it's for those individuals to go within themselves and just ask themselves why they have such hard-line, extreme opinions on this. The funny thing I think about it is this, right? There are a lot of people that come up in these conversations and they say things like, there's so many free resources out there. Why would you feel that you need to pay for a certification? There's so many amazing, free courses and free blog posts and articles and people teaching you how to do it for free. There's no need to pay for this really expensive certification. There's no need to get one-on-one mentoring or whatever. But the really funny, ironic thing about that is that the vast majority of free resources that are out there online for you to use, they are made by people who are also in the pro-tarot profession. They are made by people who also read tarot, who also make paid resources about tarot. And a lot of the freebies that people make that kind of explain the tool of tarot and all that kind of thing, they are made as a kind of free resource to help people not only to understand tarot, but also to see what the tarot professional is capable of, so that maybe they will go on and they will do one-on-one mentoring with that tarot professional, or have a reading with that tarot professional. So yes, there are lots of free resources online. Yes, it is amazing. Yes, I created a 10-part free tarot course online. I'll leave the playlist for you below if you're not aware of it. There are people creating lots of great free resources, but a lot of the time those people also do make some coin, either slinging cards or otherwise teaching tarot in some way, or they have a tarot book or whatever. So I find it really interesting that in the one breath people are saying, fuck this tarot commercialization, fuck pro tarot readers, fuck people that are making money doing certifications. But they're also saying, use the free resources, use the free stuff, use the free information, not realizing that the free information is more often than not supplied and provided by people like me who sling cards for a living, who do this for money. So it's really weird, because it's like you're being slapped across the face with one hand and then kind of held close and congratulated with the other. It's very odd. The tarot world is small. The pro tarot world is quite small. It's getting bigger all the time, but it's still very small compared to other markets that have any kind of stake in alternative spirituality or whatever you want to call it. And I feel like there is very much kind of this misunderstanding with a lot of people that come through with this very hardline opinion of where all of these free resources come from. A lot of them are made by people who are either pro readers or somewhere in the professional tarot sphere, or they want to be, and they're trying to, show what they're made of. They're trying to present their talent, their understanding, so that they can go on also to sell things and create an audience around their work. So in a way, I have been paid for the free resources that I've given out, in a sense, because I've been paid in eyes on me. I've been paid in the reputation that I've built up from creating those free resources. I've been paid in people paying for my one-on-one tarot chat sessions with me. I've been paid in those ways. I get payment for the free stuff that I give out. It just may not necessarily be money, but it improves my reputation, and it helps people to understand more about the way that I read tarot. It may convince people that are wondering whether or not to become a client to actually go ahead and become a client. So there are other reasons to do it. I think that when you're passionate about tarot, you want to teach it, you want to talk about it, and you want to do that to help other people to get into it, because it's such an amazing tool. But as much as you do it out of the goodness of your heart, yes, there are strategic reasons to do it as a tarot professional as well. There's a very good bunch of reasons for putting free resources out. It shows people what you're capable of. It builds your reputation in the professional tarot sphere. So, there is a form of payment to it in a way. I just find it really odd that people haven't thought of that they're talking about the value of free resources, but they're not recognising that those who sell certifications, mentoring, etc., they are usually the people who authored those free resources. And I guarantee you, if you Google, the definitions for a card, or, confusion with the court cards, look up kind of like articles about different things that you're confused by, different card definitions, how to do different spreads. The vast majority of the resources that are going to come up when you Google it have been made by people who also have a professional tarot website, and they are a professional tarot reader or tarot teacher. So the free resources really are made by the same people that you're accusing of commercializing tarot. Those people are valuable overall to the tarot community. It doesn't matter whether or not you think their certification is personally valuable to you. Those people have also put a lot of time, a lot of sweat, a lot of their energy into creating the free resources and bringing tarot to the point that it is now, where it is becoming more respected, and it is becoming less about soothsaying and fear-mongering and more about personal development and, you know, self-awareness and healing, emotional healing, and that kind of thing. I feel like tarot's reputation in recent years, certainly since I started slinging the cards and chatting about tarot online and stuff, has been markedly improved by people who are a part of the tarot profession. They are a part of that pro sphere. And those people, like I said, are the same people that put out the free stuff the vast majority of the time. So, you know, it's really about people recognizing that the pro people who make their money, they also do a lot of stuff that they don't necessarily benefit from financially, but the tarot world benefits massively. And people who may never have the budget for a tarot mentor or a tarot course will benefit a lot from the free resources that are put out by the same people who do sell certifications and courses. I have put loads of free tarot advice online. I've put lots of free lessons online. There's lots of information on my channel helping you with spreads, helping you with techniques, etc., all that kind of thing. And I've just begun my Let's Compare series with Card Slinger, where I'm going to go through the entire deck. All of that is for free. All of that is for free. But, you know, at the same time, I do sell my one-to-one tarot chat sessions. I do sell tarot chat packages. And of course, I do read the cards. So there's a lot of overlap. There's far more overlap than I think people realise. Honestly, if all the pro readers that sold courses or certifications or anything like that, if they stopped putting out their free resources tomorrow, you would soon see these comments about the value of free resources drying up, because there wouldn't be any left. It's pro readers that put the majority of that material out. It's pro readers that do it. So, you know, it's really interesting to me that there's this imagined divide between the pro tarot people and the people that create free resources out of the goodness of their heart and don't want anything for it. It's like, we're one and the same. We are one and the same. We are pro readers. We are pro teachers. We do sell courses or mentoring, but we also put a lot of free shit out as well. We put so much fresh blood into the tarot community, so many new resources, so many new ideas, so many new ways of looking at things that aren't necessarily for sale on our online stores, but actually are just things that we put out because we can't fucking stop. We are very passionate about the tool of tarot, and we want to write about it, we want to talk about it, we want to make resources about it. We do not want to be criticised for also, you know, having to make rent in some way. That's just that almost seems unfair. When it comes to people collecting a very high amount of decks, when it comes to people spending a lot of money on their deck collections, purchasing every new deck that comes out, you know, and really kind of putting a big budget towards decks, first of all, I would say that everybody needs to have a word with themselves about the extent to which they are spending on tarot and oracle decks. Everybody needs to be honest with themselves about the budget that they have set aside for that. To me, I don't think it's my personal business to preach to another person about what they're doing with their money and about whether or not they can conceivably afford the amount of decks that they're purchasing. I have definitely seen some eye-watering amounts of money being spent on decks, and people, you know, in some groups saying, I've spent this amount of money, I've spent this amount of money, and I'm stunned, really. I'm really stunned. I don't have that amount of money to spend on decks, I'll put it that way. You know, it's not a judgment of those people, it's just of interest to me. I have no interest in judging what somebody else does with their money. I don't know the state of their bank balance. I don't know what they've got going on. I don't know what budget they've got, you know, put aside, or whether or not they've even thought about budgeting. what I do know is that there are a lot of people, you know, in the spiritual realm who definitely want to sit on a very high horse when it comes to what other people do with their money and what other people spend their money on. And again, I think that goes back to somebody having to do their own shadow work, having to think about what that means in terms of them and their reactions. Why are they responding that way? You know, why does it bother them so terribly much what somebody else is doing with their money? And I think that's really where it has to lead back to. If you know that it bothers you to see so many people spending on decks and buying new decks, and it seems like a never-ending carousel of commercialism and buying, then you really need to get yourself out of that environment. There's no way that you're going to stop that culture of buying and collecting decks and talking about decks and swapping decks. You're not going to stop that culture from existing. That is in full fucking swing, and you coming out fighting, complaining about it or making judgments about it is not going to stop it. It's only going to leave a sour taste in everybody's mouth, and it's only going to make people feel judged and feel like they don't really want to befriend you online because you seem to be judgmental in that way. The best thing to do is to realize that it's not a healthy environment for you. It is not a healthy place for you to be. If you're finding that you're going online to groups or to YouTube and you're seeing unboxing and first impressions videos, you're seeing massive deck collection videos, and it's making you feel some type of way, for whatever reason it's making you feel that way, you need to log off, you need to log out, you need to step away. It's not the right place for you to be. But it is not for you to start to make snarky comments or openly judge others who are doing their thing and spending their money in a way that feels right for them. And I think that's really where you've gone to a place that's unhelpful for you. If you've decided that your response to the way that you feel about people buying decks is to judge them and their reasons for buying decks and to criticize them, whether openly or behind their backs, then I feel like already you're not doing the best thing for yourself. That's not a self-loving way to deal with the situation, because ultimately you are still in a state of being around that kind of culture of buying and consuming and sharing what you've purchased. And if that's not good for you, then that's not good for you right now. It might kind of become a healthy place for you to be again in the future. But if it's not a healthy place for you to be at this moment, then you need to take responsibility for that. That is not for someone else to take responsibility for the way you feel about how they're spending their money. I was thinking more about this person's accusation that they levelled at me, that my videos have aided the tarot commercialism pollution. And I was thinking again, you know, what does that mean? What exactly am I being accused of? And I thought that another thing that this person might have meant is the fact that once you get to a certain number of subscribers and views on your YouTube channel, you are sent decks for review. Now, I actually haven't been sent that many decks for review, to be honest with you. It doesn't happen for me. I tend to find that it's people on the other side of the pond in the US who are sent decks for review. No one's ever really taken a chance on me. It doesn't happen that often. I've had a few indie decks come through to me, which has been amazing. Anyway, that's besides the point. I feel like sometimes your popularity on YouTube as a tarot creator and somebody who talks about tarot can definitely lead to you being judged as somebody who is now part of this big like corporate or commercial machine kind of thing, and who is kind of encouraging other people to maybe part with money that they don't have, that kind of whole business. And I just think maybe that might be a part of the accusation as well, is that I've reached a certain stage where people are interested in sending me decks for review, and that is something that can be frowned upon. That is something that really bothers people a lot. And again, I really don't understand why, because as Katie Flowers said in a recent video, the Q&A video that she did, when you are sent a deck for review, it's actually not a freebie. You have to play with the deck, you have to consider your response to the deck, you have to make the video, you have to edit the video, that kind of thing. So there's work involved with receiving a free deck. It's not like you receive the deck and that's it, and it's a lovely cushy little present for you because you're one of the more popular channels. It's part of the job, it's part of the passion project, it's part of what you do, whether you're a pro reader or not. It definitely takes work, and it takes concentration, and it's something that you agree to do because you love doing it. But it's not just a case of getting a free gift and that's that. You have to collect your thoughts about the free gift. You have to create the content, you have to edit the content, you have to engage with the people who engage with the content. So it's not a freebie. There's so much more to it than that, and I think it's really easy from the outside looking in for somebody to be like, oh, how lovely for you getting all of these free decks. But that's actually, it is part of the job, it's part of what you do. One thing that I have definitely noticed that does happen every now and again is that somebody in a tarot group will make a post about how they're concerned that they've been purchasing too many decks, they have been spending too much money, they've been going over budget, that they are a little bit addicted to buying decks and that kind of thing. Now, I think if you have recognised that you find that there is an addictive tendency in your deck buying, and you've recognised that it's unhealthy and it's unhelpful for you, it's really important that you are able to be honest with yourself about that. And it's great that you have identified that in yourself and you have acknowledged that it is a problem that needs to be solved. However, what can sometimes happen when somebody comes forward and says, you know, I've got a problem with deck buying and I find it addictive and I need to stop, is that other people who are avid deck buyers will come across in kind of a defensive way, and they will kind of feel as though somebody's admittance that they spend too much on decks is an accusation that others as well are spending too much on decks. But actually, you know what? That's not what it is the vast majority of the time. If a person has recognised that they are getting to this point where their deck buying has gotten out of hand and they're really not happy with the way that they are buying decks, and they feel like they're going broke because they feel like they've got to have every deck that comes out and whatnot, then they need to be able to have a space to actually open up about that and admit that, so that they can do something about it, so that they can start changing their habits. And people need to be supported when they come out and admit that they have a problem with buying decks, because absolutely anything can be addictive, and of course shopping can be addictive, of course consumerism has an addictive quality, and it gives you a very temporary but very real warm fuzzy feeling, right? And that warm fuzzy feeling doesn't last, and it goes the way of the dodo quite quickly, and you have to buy something again and again and again, and that's the addictive nature of it. And we do need to be aware of the fact that this can happen. Now, there are a lot of people who do have the budget for a lot of deck collecting. Maybe they didn't always have that budget, maybe they've raised their children and they had to prioritise their children. Now their children have flown the nest, they feel like, you know what, I've got money for me, I'm going to improve my deck collection, I'm going to get it to like a couple of hundred decks, I'm going to really let myself budget a lot for decks. And that's great, that's amazing, and nobody should be judging somebody who finds themselves in that situation, because they don't understand what somebody's financial history has been, they don't understand what somebody's financial past has been. That person may never have been able to afford decks until now, and now they're getting into this point where they can afford decks, and that's great. And if that's what they want to budget their excess income on, or some, you know, percentage of their excess income, that's amazing. But in the same breath, you know, there are a lot of people who are trying to keep up with those who have a big budget for deck buying. And it's not the fault of the people that have that big budget at all. It's not their fault, and they should not be made to feel guilty for having the excess income and making a decision to become a deck collector. They should not be blamed for somebody else's issues with feeling addicted to buying decks that they can't afford. So it's really just about making way for people to be honest about what's going on with them. And it's important that people are able to go to the community and say, I need to stop buying decks, and maybe I even need to leave some of these Facebook groups because they're a part of the issue. I keep seeing decks that I want, I keep purchasing them regardless of whether or not I can afford them, and it's no good. You know, so when people say things like that, they do need to be supported in their decision to be strong and stop their negative spending habits. And it's very important that those people who do have a big budget for decks and do spend a lot on decks refrain from being defensive when certain people in the community admit that they have an addiction to buying and they've got to stop, because it's not an attack. It shouldn't be anyway. It should never be an attack on someone who does have more of a budget for deck buying. It should really just be a kind of honest appraisal of one's own financial situation. And I think it's really good when people do come forward and say, you know what, I'm actually spending too much on decks. This has been fun while it lasted, but I've really got to get out of this habit. I've got to get out of this pattern. Quite a few hours have passed since I started my chat with you guys in the bedroom, my housework ramble. I've moved into the kitchen now after doing a few bits and pieces, a couple of readings, helping a friend out with something on the phone, going to the shop, getting some stuff, getting some supplies and whatnot, and having a little bite to eat. And now I need to do a quick bit of washing up because I have my best friend coming around for dinner tonight. I'm going to make him a gorgeous stir fry. You know when you absolutely can't wait to wipe your sideboards down and clean your cooker, but you leave it until last, or I do anyway. I leave it until last, to be honest. I wait until everything's done, every little bit of crockery and cutlery is clean, everything's tidied away, and then I do my wipe down. But I am so fucking tempted to just go in the wrong order today because I really just want to wipe down now. Anyway, so I suppose what I want to say to conclude this ramble rant today is if you are starting to get your tights in a twist about what somebody is charging for their certification and it's really bothering you and you're really losing sleep over it, I would definitely recommend that you just remind yourself quickly that you don't have to pay for this certification. No one's forcing your hand. These people in the community who are popular, who have long-standing reputable businesses, who charge maybe a few more pretty pennies than you think is okay for their certification, they don't have little, you know, elves helping them to get your card details and put your fucking card details into their website and snatch the money from you so that you are like forced to take their course or be mentored by them. Like, no one is forcing you to buy it. So, you know, there's really no need for you to lose any sleep over the idea that somebody else may want to buy it. People are going to price their courses, their readings, their certifications, etc. at a price that feels right for them. And if that price does not feel right for you, then you're absolutely free to bypass that product or service. You do not have to buy it. Tarot was commercialized a long time before I came along. And if I do some unboxing and first impressions videos, or if I sell some tarot related services, I don't think that means that I'm contributing to some sort of, you know, brand spanking new commercialization pollution, or whatever it was I said earlier, whatever it was that person wrote in their reply to me. It doesn't mean that I've come along and made it so. Before I was around and before other readers were around, there were people making money online from doing tarot, and some of those people are still making money online from doing tarot. Like I said earlier, there are amazing free resources on the internet. I've made some, and I've certainly benefited from a great deal of them. I'm grateful for the fact that the internet is a wealth of different people's knowledge and that people are so willing to put free resources out. But don't forget that a lot of those same people that put out those resources, you know, they do have to make rent, they do have to live, and this is their vocation, or this is at least part of their vocation. So, you know, don't knock those people who have given you their time and their energy and created these free resources for you. If you don't want to purchase what they are providing as a paid service or a paid product, fine, you do not need to, and nobody is forcing your hand to. But don't resent those people for making some money after all of the freebies that they've given and all of the energy and the time that they've put out into the tarot community. To me, if somebody purchases a video collection of mine, and my video collections are usually priced at about £100 or 135, 140 if you also want access to my private Facebook group, right? That's normally the price. If people purchase those collections and afterwards they say freely that they are glad that they spent that money on the collection, they feel like it was a useful investment of their money, they are glad that they spent that money, they don't regret it, then to me there is absolutely nothing unethical about the price that I've decided to charge. I sat down and I figured out what kind of price would be as accessible as possible to the greatest number of my audience members, whilst also ensuring that the price wasn't screwing me over and that I was actually getting adequately paid for the amount of labour that I was putting into each video resource and the amount of labour I put in to getting those things scheduled and sent out, and the admin labour that I put into getting everybody added to the email list. So I need to make sure that I make an adequate amount of money for the effort that I put in. and you know, to ensure that the products and services that I provide, I'm adequately paid for. I need to make sure that I'm adequately paid for what I provide, but at the same time I do like to make it as accessible as I can. The price that I charge for my video collections for some people is incredibly accessible, and it feels like a really good price for what you get from the 10 or 15 videos that you get per collection. For other people, it is no way accessible, and it probably never will be accessible. For them, in their financial situation, they simply cannot budget £100 for some exclusive videos. It wouldn't make any financial sense. It would screw them over. If they bought those videos, they wouldn't be able to pay the rent or feed their kid or whatever. So obviously it depends on the financial situation that you are in. But one thing is for certain, in order to access my resources and access teaching from me, you actually don't need £100. If you have the £100 to spend on a video collection, or you have the £40 that you want to spend on a full-length reading from me, amazing, that's awesome. And then you get to have that one-on-one experience with me, or that exclusive content from me. You support my business, you allow me to be able to keep doing what I'm doing, you enable me to keep progressing in my business and in my learning, and you get something from it as well. You get access to more of me, or more of my brand, more of what I have to offer, more of what I have to teach. But if you do not have the money ever at any point for one of my paid services or products, you still can take advantage of all of my free audio files on SoundCloud, all of my free videos on YouTube. I have got so much free information and so many, you know, supportive posts and encouraging supportive things over on Facebook. You can catch me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm always sharing ideas. I'm always trying to share inspiration, and all of that stuff is free. All of that access to me is free. The vast majority of people that have a certification to sell, or a mentorship program, or anything of that nature, you will find that they also put a lot of content out for free. And you know, I feel very strongly, especially when it comes to things like advertising my paid services on my channel, I feel very, very strongly that I have earned the right to advertise my paid products and services. I have earned the right to let my audience know what they can buy from me and how they can actually access more through investing in my products and services. I am never ever going to apologise for advertising on my YouTube channel. I'm never ever going to apologise for putting advertising posts on Twitter and Facebook, because a lot of my audience members want to know what I've got going on in my online store. They want the opportunity to be able to buy something that might be time specific and might have an enrollment period. And the way that I get in touch with those people is via my social media platforms. It's via YouTube and Twitter and everything else. And my feeling is that as long as the vast majority of the things that I post are not necessarily linked to marketing and advertising, then obviously I think it's fair that 5 to 10% of the things that I post are advertising and marketing. It's important because it lets my audience know what I'm up to and what I'm doing, what I'm selling, what's available to buy. And it's important for me for my livelihood. It's important that the people that do want to invest in my business are reminded that they have the opportunity to do so and they know what's available. Everybody has a different idea, I suppose, of what commercialism is and what making something commercial really means. There are tons of certifications and mentorship programs that I've seen over the years, both before I was a professional and afterwards, that I either haven't been able to afford, or I have been able to afford but I didn't necessarily want to invest. It didn't seem like my kind of thing. It didn't seem like the kind of thing I felt I would get a lot of return on the investment from. It didn't pique my interest, whatever, you know. And it's nothing personal to the people that were running those courses or those certifications. It's just that I either wasn't financially viable for them, or they weren't really for me, that they didn't speak to me. Why would I go from making that discernment for myself that a course or a service of some kind isn't for me, to making a judgment of the people who do buy it, deciding that the people who do buy it aren't legitimate in some way, or they aren't as good as me in some way? Why would I don't understand how that leap is being made, really. And again, as I've said before, I think it all comes back to the shadow work stuff. I think it comes to looking at your own position on something. It's realizing that you are making these huge generalizations, like these massive sweeping statements about people who are investing in the things that you don't consider to be worthwhile. And you're deciding that those people don't have tarot as their calling, or they're not legitimate in their practice, you know, or they're stupid, they're idiots, you know, they're throwing their money away, they're wasting their money. And I just feel like that comes from a place of of self. That is your projection. That is your assumption. Everybody's going to have their different feelings about what they spent their money on and whether or not it was a worthy investment or whether it was a regrettable investment. And you, as somebody on the sidelines who didn't choose to invest and didn't really have a feeling for the product, that you wanted to purchase it, you are deciding that all of the people that did purchase it are somehow beneath you. And come on, that's got to be something that you need to shadow work through, seriously. A very long time ago, when I had first started YouTube, I think it was like the first year or two that I was at YouTube, there was a massive debate in the witchy community. And it was underneath this person's video who had made what I can only describe as a really touchy, really moody, very low vibe video about witches who have businesses that are related to their craft. And basically just just slagging those witches off, really, just saying that they shouldn't be selling their spirituality, that she was sick of seeing advertising for things, and also she was sick of seeing all the hauls and the materialism and the consumerism, and basically just had a really big shadowy bee in her bonnet. She's not active in the community anymore, this person, but there was a big debate that went on underneath this video. One of the things that really struck me about this discussion, and there were a lot of things that really struck me about it, and I did get involved in the discussion, but one of the things that really kind of made me think and sort of surprised me quite a lot was that it seemed like anybody with any kind of business who was even remotely advertising in any of their videos, or even in the down bar underneath their videos, was being lumped into this category of like highly consumerist, utterly shallow, money-making, money-driven people who were just selling their spirituality, just whoring out their spirituality or something. And it seemed really extreme to me. There are so many people in this community who have a business of one kind or another. They have a side hustle or a full-time gig. They make their money in some way that pertains to spirituality or personal development or card slinging or crafting or whatever. But they also make really juicy, fizzy, useful, deep content. They make instructional videos, they make incredible vlogs, they give of themselves, they answer comments and they leave comments, you know, they are a part of the community, they're a valid, active part of the community. And I do feel like there are people who just shit on them from a great height just because they also happen to have a business. And like 1 in 5 of their videos or 1 in 8 of their videos may mention their business, or, you know, they may showcase some of their products in their videos. They may invite people to go over to the shop and see what's there. It's literally 10 seconds of a video to say, hey, by the way, I have an Etsy shop, you know, pop over if you want to. I'll leave the link in the down bar. 10 seconds of a video that is otherwise advertising free, that is full of useful insights or juicy information, something for you to watch, something for you to indulge in. I can't understand for the life of me why those 10 seconds would rub somebody up so horrendously the wrong way. And when it comes to the hauls and things like that, again, I do feel, as I said earlier when I was in the bedroom, that there is a lot of shadowy stuff pertaining to money. There are a lot of people that struggle. There are a lot of people that had difficult upbringings. They didn't have a lot of money to play with, or they don't have a lot of money to play with now. They don't want to see hauls all the time. It makes them feel shitty, and yet they may sit there and watch a half an hour haul anyway, despite the fact that they know that it's not making them feel good. They may sit around and watch unboxing and first impressions videos, even though they really are hankering for new decks, and they would love to be able to enjoy the frivolity and the caprice of just ordering some new decks online, but actually money is fucking tight and they can't do that at the moment. And so even though they know that it's maybe not the kind of material they should be watching on YouTube, nonetheless they are watching that material on YouTube, and it's not helpful. They're not helping themselves by watching that kind of content. But instead of stepping away and being like, you know what, I'm not in a position right now where I can watch people show me all the things they bought with their excess income. It's not healthy and it's not helpful for me. Instead of doing that, these people will watch these things, you know, this kind of subsection of people that do get shadowy and do call people out for consumerism. They watch these things and then they leave shitty comments underneath, or they go off to a, you know, the pagan Facebook group or whatever, and they leave a passive aggressive post about how many hauls there are and how many people are empty and consumerist about their spirituality and they're sick of seeing the hauls. Since I've been on YouTube, there have been quite a few different spates, like different waves of videos that have come over the years about the evils of witchy hauls and the evils of being too consumerist and too materialistic. And I definitely can see the benefit in some of those videos. I actually have made a couple of videos myself about the dangers of getting stuck in witchy consumerism and feeling like you have to buy more for your practice. And I'll leave both of those videos down below if you want to watch them. And in the second video, I believe the second video of the two, I talk about how having a YouTube channel actually can sometimes worsen this feeling that you want to be consumeristic about your practice, because you are aware that other witches are looking, other witches are observing your practice, they are looking at your altar, they're looking at your deck collection, etc. So you almost have this feeling of witchy gaze, and that makes it even more tempting for you to spend on things, right? I guess the way that I want to end this video is just to say that, for one, if you really enjoy the content that a particular witch in the community is making, if you get something from what they're saying, if you find their content to be helpful, then if that witch goes on to start some kind of a business, some kind of a side hustle, if they want to sell their candles or their readings, please don't unsubscribe from them for that. Please don't leave anything snarky underneath their video because of that. Please don't roll your eyes and think, oh, for fuck's sake, not another person that's got a business. Because at the end of the day, people are multifaceted. There's a lot of different layers to a person, and they may want to try their hand at running a little side hustle, but that doesn't mean that they're not also deeply invested in their witchy journey. It doesn't mean that they're not also really interested in the community. Just because somebody runs a business or opens up a little business or a side hustle doesn't mean that they're only on YouTube to use you and get money out of you at all. It's exciting to sell some things that are to do with your passion. It's exciting if you have a skill for crafting, or you're really passionate about something that you make that you know works for you in your witchy practice, and you know that you can sell it to others. Or it's exciting even to just see your shop front and just have the stuff in there. Honestly, it's a really nice feeling. And some people will do it for a while and then they'll stray away from it and it won't be for them. Other people will find that they can make quite a good full-time living out of it eventually. But if that witch is giving you something of worth, if that witch is making your experience on YouTube better in some way, and you appreciate what they're bringing to the proceedings, then ask yourself why you would have such a big problem with them branching out into making a little bit of money or exhibiting their wares online, you know? I'm not saying that you have to sit there for video after video after video of nothing but advertising. I'm not saying that, and I can understand how that might get a little bit frustrating. But honestly, I never see anything like that on my feed. I definitely do see some business advertising videos, but it's definitely not the bulk of what anybody uploads. I just feel like they experience quite a lot of immediate backlash if they do any kind of marketing or promotional video. I tend to feel like even if the last 10 videos a person put out were informative, instructional, you know, just thoughts and ideas, nothing to do with advertising at all, I feel like if that same person then puts out one video about something that they are offering, a paid purchase that they're selling, they're going to get some kind of backlash for that. And I just think that comes from a shadowy place from the person actually dishing out that backlash. It's really for them to figure out why it is that is really rubbing them up the wrong way. And the other thing that I want to finish up by saying, that I kind of want to underline, I suppose, in what I've spoken about today, is that if you know that certain kinds of content are not good for you, they're not healthy for you, they really kind of amplify the feelings that you have, the negative feelings that you have about your own financial situation, they make you feel cynical, they make you feel apathetic or angry, please just stop watching those kinds of videos. And if you do need to unsubscribe from somebody who is very haul happy or very unboxing and first impressions happy, if you feel like that's all that you see from them and you really want to get that kind of thing out of your feed because you find it really tempting, unsubscribe for your own self-preservation. You know, really just allow yourself to customize your feed so that it's something that isn't a list of big triggers for you, so that it's a place that's joyful to look through rather than a place that kind of like gives you the heebie-jeebies or makes you feel really antsy or really stressed out. It's okay to tailor your experience. I suppose that's what I'm trying to say. It's perfectly fine to tailor your experience, and I tend to find that when I tailor my social media experiences so that I'm not seeing or hearing from people whose content just does something negative to me, then I have a better time. And it's not personal to that person. It's not personal to the people that you choose to unsubscribe from. It's you putting yourself first. It's you deciding that you deserve to have a better experience on your social media platforms. You want to have a better experience online. And sometimes the only way to do that is to tailor your experience. But what I would say is that it's always really saddening to me when people don't tailor their experience, and then they are consistently exposed to content that bothers them or pisses them off or rubs them up the wrong way, and then they actually begin to be passive aggressive about it in other spaces online, or they even just leave a nasty comment underneath the person's video. And I've seen this time and time again, and it's just not necessary. Sometimes, every so often, and I'm not saying that this is the majority of the time by any stretch of the imagination, but every so often, just as I think some people are simply envious of those who have the excess income to buy a lot of decks or a lot of trinkets, I think some people who are hostile towards those who have businesses are actually envious of the confidence and the boldness that it takes to have a business. I think sometimes that there have been people I know there have been people in the community in the past, over the years, who have been very, very snarky about witches that have businesses and then have gone on to open their own business. No judgment, no shade coming from my direction. I think it's great that those people dealt with whatever shadowy shit was going on inside of them, and they thought, you know what, fuck it, I want to sell my candles, I want to sell my soaps, I want to do this. And I do think sometimes that is a little bit of what is going on. Like I said, not in every case, but it does take boldness, and it does take, you know, confidence to say, hey, you know what, I want to try my hand at this. And I think sometimes the people that are the quickest to jump on that bandwagon of hating and criticising a new business owner are occasionally those who would like to be business owners themselves. And so it definitely is sometimes a very obvious shadow reaction that comes from a place of just wishing that that person themselves had the confidence to go for it. And if you've got a dream inside of you and you want to go for it, fucking go for it. Don't let yourself get caught up on the sidelines being snarky and critical and cynical about what other people are doing. And certainly don't level that criticism and that darkness and that shit at those people. You know, take yourself away from that atmosphere so that you don't end up behaving that way, and take some time to think about what you want to do, what you would like to build, what kind of business you would like to run if that's what you want to do. If you don't have a channel and you realise that a lot of your bad feelings and a lot of your negative crap is coming from actually wanting to start a channel yourself, start a fucking channel yourself, you know? Let 2018 be a year where you do the thing you're afraid of doing. And if you're watching this way after 2018, then same thing. Let it be a time whenever you're watching this when you let yourself do what you want to do instead of tearing other people down for trying to do what they want to do. So I've covered a lot of ground in this video, guys. I know I ended up, initially I was talking about the certification, and I ended up a long way from that. At the end of the day, there are going to be mentorships online, there are going to be certifications online, courses, etc. And you are going to look at them and you are going to say, Jesus Christ on a fucking banana, that is a lot of money, that is too much moolah, that is way too much wonga for me to even consider. But just bear in mind that everybody's idea of what a good investment is different, and everybody's bank balance is currently different. And if it's not right for you, it's not right for you. But just don't make a judgment about the people who have decided that yes, they have the excess income and yes, they want to make that investment. Their reasons for going ahead with something are obviously very different to your reasons for not going ahead with it. And I don't think anybody needs to be beaten about the face with somebody else's reason why something that they wanted to invest in is bullshit. I think that there are things I've purchased that my friends have thought probably weren't worthwhile, and I've definitely looked at things that my friends have spent money on and thought, oh, I would have gone for a holiday, mate, but whatever you want, I would have gone for a couple of weeks in the sun. But if that's what you wanted, you know, if you wanted that vintage signed vinyl, fine, but there's flights on EasyJet for like a quarter of that price, you know. So it's definitely about your priorities in life. It's about what matters to you. And sometimes you will see something that somebody is selling in the community and you'll be like, fuck that, I could get this and this with that. But to somebody else, it's exactly what they've been looking for. It's exactly what they want to do. So it's just about not expecting everybody to see things the same way that you do. And for those of you, if there are any of you watching this who feel like I am contributing to the tarot commercialism pollution, explain to me in the down bar why you think that is. And if you have different ideas on what the commercialization of the tarot industry is, or if you have different opinions on high prices for certifications, please leave them down below. Obviously be respectful as always, although to be honest, I don't seem to have any problems with that kind of shit in my comments section. It's extremely rare that a douchebag does roll in, and they roll out as quickly as they rolled in, because I'm not afraid of that block button. But, you know, it does seem like people can have conversations about some really intense, very divisive subjects here on this channel without, you know, without coming to fisticuffs and without, like, taking it to low blows. And I think that that's fucking amazing. So if we can do that on cultural appropriation, I'm sure we can do that on this topic. So, yeah, leave me your opinions. I'd love to know what kinds of opinions you have, if any, if they differ from mine, if you've had your own experiences. Let me know. Much love, guys. Blessed be. Mwah.